We've talked about prime time. We've talked about the Swami. Obviously, another thing you're known for were the nicknames, which I'm sure you're sick of talking about. But here's my question. Have you ever had an athlete come up to you, reach out to you that didn't like their nickname, their Chris Berman nickname?
Very few, because that's a good question too. It's a funny story. So 80s and 90s, when I was doing the baseball all the time on either the games or at Sports Center at night, and I did 10 Sports Centers a week, blah, 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 as we all did. They kind of liked the little notoriety. None of them were derogatory. That's important to know.
Right.
Nothing was, Mike Witt, Mike Dim Witt. No, I would never use that, So Kevin Bass, a good guy, really good guy. At the time, Houston was he played a long time, all-star outfielder with Houston. He came up and goes, Chris, I don't know if I love the nickname, because he was largemouth bass. And I said, well, I don't mean anything. He goes, I know you don't. He was very nice. I know you don't mean anything wrong by it, but it makes me sound like a big mouth or a complainer. And I thought for 5-10 seconds, not to be flippant at all. I went, all right, let me ask you this. How's smallmouth bass? He goes, go with it. And so, so we went with it. So not many, because it was all in fun and never at their expense.
Yeah, I meant it more as like, did someone maybe say like, oh, mine should be more fun or more, not right. That they were mad about it,
Well, George Brett came up. I mean, that story's been written. George and I remain great friends. Early 80s, how come we don't have more nicknames? Well, the Royals. George, are you kidding? I don't know. I mean, well, what's mine? I said, well, George, you were already George Brett before I got on TV. I'm not calling you like Wonder Brett. We're Johnny Bench. They were already Johnny Bench. I mean, Johnny Bench is a layup nickname, right? Like you could come up with 18. Not doing that. So it was kind of like a blank canvas, but you were grandfathered in almost like an NHL player who was playing without the helmet, Jimmy. They're already playing. They get to keep the helmet off.
And did some players have two nicknames? Because I think when I talked about watching some old prime times, like I said, I love that era with Natron Means. And I always thought it was Natron Means Business.
Yes.
But then I think you had another one for him, because I remember watching it. Now I can't remember what the other one was.
It was really because it was on the delivery too, because he pulled guys over, as you remember. Natron Means Business. Now, the ones that had more than one nickname, there were a couple in baseball. It was perfect. The Mike Felder, remember him? He was an outfielder with the Brewers and a few others. Well, depending on what position he played, he was left, center, or right Felder. And then the classic Jim Gott had 4 nicknames: pitcher, Pirates, and others. Jim got the win, Jim got the save, Jim got the loss, Jim got no decision. So he had 4. The football one, I'll tell you one. So Eric Bieniemy, it's still obviously in the news.
Great one.
And a great person. Chargers, Niners, that Super Bowl. Media Day. We're laughing and this and that. I love my nickname, Sleeping with Bieniemy. Then he goes, my wife's not too fond. I said, all right, tell her I'm not implying it. She knows, but I thought that was funny.
My all-time favorite will always be Burt Be Home by 11.
You know why? Every parent said it. Every kid heard it. You don't have to know he was a pitcher for the Twins or the Pirates. You don't have to know he had a curve ball. You don't have to know he won a lot of games. You just be home by 11. Okay, Dad.
Do you ever, I'm just thinking, because when we talk about Natron Means, and you talked about how he has those powerful bursting runs. And now, I don't know if you watch Good Morning Football, Kyle Brandt, who's a friend of mine, does the angry runs, and he's incorporated a lot of the sounds. And we see a lot of people incorporate the sounds, and I feel like they're all doing it sort of as an homage to you in a way. When you see that, do you think, that's, it needs some noise there, let's get some noise going on that run?
If they are doing it as an homage, I love it, but I don't have I didn't patent it. So
right.
So it's descriptive. And when doing highlights, Jimmy, whether it's Kyle, me, or anybody, and I try to tell our youngsters, when words and pictures are match, It's 1 + 1 = 3. So if you want to go and there's Natron means business or Mike, good hands with Allstott. Well, you're watching. You don't look in the camera and say. You do it while he's on the 3-yard line trying to score a touchdown. And it's same with the whoop. I mean, that's Barry Sanders, by the way. I mean, right. But it's really the Three Stooges. Did you know that?
Yes, Larry, Moe, Curly. Sure.
Right. So,
give me a player today. I mean, you do primetime on Primetime Plus, but who's the player today you love calling a highlight for, who gives you the sounds, who you get excited for, gives you a good run, gives you a good chance to beat Chris Berman that we know with the highlight?
Well, it's a lot easier with the quarterbacks than it ever was, obviously. I mean, you can take a half dozen. Mahomes is one of them, but Josh Allen, Lamar, Jackson when he's healthy. We're seeing it from Jalen Hurts. I mean, and I'm leaving a couple out because they're going to throw that Kyler Murray, that extra point that took about 30, the fastest 3 minutes of extra point, 2-point conversion. I mean, so the mobile quarterbacks all give you a chance to do it because maybe they're not throwing it right then either. They're making a move to buy another 5 to 10 seconds. So one, Josh Allen maybe, because again, Buffalo, but any one of those that I just mentioned, and with apologies to a couple I might have left out, it's a different game behind the center, obviously.
Yeah. Last thing, there's nothing to do with sports. You mentioned it earlier in this podcast. You've always loved music. We've seen you throughout the years. I've seen you on stage with Huey Lewis and the Eagles and all that. Now? There's an ongoing joke in sports media that every sports media white male over 40 is obsessed with Bruce Springsteen. I'm not a Bruce guy, and then people on Twitter, I get nasty responses when I say that. Are you a Bruce guy like everyone else?
I don't know Bruce personally. I did see him a long time ago before I don't even know if he had Rosalita out at that time. So, but look, I got to be great friends with Huey Lewis, the Bay Area, and he had me on stage 15 times or whatever. And I could sing okay. I mean, for one song, and it's a song he didn't sing unless I was there walking on a thin line. It was an add-on. Nobody wants to hear Chris Berman sing The Power of Love, okay? So, for good reason. And it was usually an encore where people had a few already, right? So, hey, it's great. Now get off. Glenn Fry became a really good friend. Bob Seger is a very good friend. I'm not name dropping. The ones who are sports fans, I got to know. And those were among my favorites. I mean, I could mention about 20 more. But Bruce,
give me an artist you never saw in concert who you wish you would have seen, dead or alive, doesn't matter.
None of the Beatles. Well, I mean, the Beatles. I mean, they'd be hard to. But I've never seen Paul or Ringo.
You've never seen Paul? I'm surprised by that.
No.
I saw a Billy Joel concert. It was the last concert ever at Chase Stadium. And Paul was a surprise and did 2 numbers. Can I count that as saying I saw Paul McCartney in concert? Okay.
Yes. Yes, that's it. You're in. Hold all calls. You have a winner.
I'll take it.
I'm trying to think. Well, the Beatles, that's as big. I've seen most everyone else. I do want to throw one thing out to you before we go. Super Bowl. So it's people can think about this. The previous 2 games in this building, which they hate when I call it the big toaster, by the way, because it looks like a toaster, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Put the English muffins in, and we're on, right? The 2 Super Bowls, Jimmy, in this building were obviously the Patriots going 18-0 and 19-0 except for the last minute. Say no more. And the game that changed the paths of 2 teams last decade by New England, Malcolm Butler picking off the Seahawks at the 1. Had Seattle won 2 in a row for them, maybe they have a chance for 3 in a row because that defense stays together. And all of a sudden, New England, 3 unbelievably tough losses, go from 3-0 to 3-3. Oh, they can't win the big one. I'm not saying they can't. So the 2 games in there were seminal moments for not only, for football history. So with 2 number 1 seeds, maybe we get one of those. I mean, the easy thing is, Mahomes shows how, but maybe it's an unbelievable game that Philly and Jalen Hurts knock them off. But it's one of those. So we're set. The stage is set in this building for something great.